Welcome everyone. Today I will talk about Minoan scripts and their decipherment. The Minoan civilization flourished on the island of Crete from 2600 to 1500 BC, and they were well known for their ships, by which they reached most of the areas of the Mediterranean and the Black Seas. Here is a nice reconstructed ship of the Minoans. This is from a fresco painting from Santorini. Around 1600 BC, there was a big volcanic eruption, which was followed by earthquakes, tsunamis, and it weakened the Minoan civilization. But it was later conquered by the Mycenaean Greek civilization around 1450 BC. And eventually the Minoan civilization's memory faded and was preserved only in a few legends, such as the famous legend of the Minotaur and Theseus, the Athenian king, which killed the Minotaur. The real exploration and rediscovery of the Minoan civilization started around 1900 with the excavations of Sir Arthur Evans, the famous British archaeologist. And here we see just a piece of the Knossos Palace. Within the palace there were very beautiful frescoes of bulls and statues, but none of them were picturing a Minotaur. What's most important for us today, that among the ruins, Evans has found 3 different scripts: Cretan Hieroglyphs, Linear A script, and Linear B scripts, according to his classifications. We will analyze the Minoan writings today using 3 different tools. The first one will be script comparison. The second will be grammar, and the third one will be etymology. I write this down on the board. For scripts, we can look for similar scripts and then try to guess the linear A values, script values according to that. Grammar obviously helps in the decipherment, and etymology comes in with possible survivals of Minoan words in ancient Greek. So let's take a look at what has been done before. Out of all the scripts, linear that Evans has found, linear B has been already deciphered in the 1950s by Michael Ventris. And Ventris has been learning many languages since high school, including ancient Greek, Latin, German, Polish. He visited many countries, lived there while he was still growing up. And he also learned Polish. His mother was of Polish descent. So he really was a polyglot person. And in 1953, he could decipher linear B as an archaic form of Greek. The key to his decipherment was noticing the similarity between linear B and the Cypriot syllabary. The Cypriot syllabary had already known phonetic values, And by substituting those phonetic values into the similar linear B signs, he got these place names. Pa, I, To, which he assumed to be Festus, and Ko, No, So, which he assumed to be Knossos, two ancient names of cities from the Minoan Civilization. So this was really the key. That's why the script similarity is an important issue. For further decipherments, they also looked at the grammar of linear B and other things. And in that process of further decipherment, John Chadwick from Oxford University was working together with Michael Ventris. So now let's take a look at linear A. Linear A has this set of symbols, at least half of the symbols, and then it continues here. We can see that many of the symbols have a little picture of a cup and other objects, okay? And these are the ones that we would like to analyze today, okay? So I think the process of just looking at symbols and deciding that, oh, they are looking similar to me is a little weak approach. So instead, I prefer to analyze the symbols in a more systematic, mathematical way, using certain features which are listed here. For each sign, we can look at these features and decide whether the sign contains or doesn't contain the feature. For example, feature number 1 would say, does it have some curved line in it? Many of the symbols have only straight lines. That's how the name of linear was given to this script by Arthur Evans, but some of them actually do contain curved lines. We can look for feature number 2. Does the sign contain an enclosed region? Or feature 3, does it contain a slanted straight line or parallel lines, crossing lines, and so on? There are certain features like this to consider. Now, according to these features, every symbol can be classified as a vector. For example, the linear A signs, which are shown on the top, can be classified as a vector shown here. This sign here, this means that it does not have a curved line. Black would mean it does not. Red would mean it does. The circle is a mnemonic form for enclosed space, slanted line, parallel line, crossing line, and so on. So we know what features each symbol contains. And we can do this for any other alphabet or syllabary that we would like to compare linear A with. For example, here's the Korean alphabet. The Korean alphabet existed from around 800 to 200 BC nearby on the western coast of present-day Turkey. So this is a very good candidate alphabet to have a relationship with the Minoan scripts. All right, so that's why we analyze this set of alphabet symbols on the top, and similar vectors can be given for each of the alphabet letters. The good thing about the Korean alphabet is that the phonetic values of this is already known. So for example, this is A, B, W, D, and so on. We know the phonetic values. Another script that we used was the Old Hungarian script. This was a script before the adaptation of the Latin alphabet that is generally used in Europe. And in this alphabet, which again existed at least from the 5th century, maybe earlier, in southeastern Europe, this is analyzed similarly for all of the letters. And here, in a few cases, there is an older form, later form of the same letter. This has been also evolving over centuries. When doing script comparison, obviously, the oldest form is what we have to consider foremost. Okay, so the feature analysis is according to the known oldest form of the letters. And we analyze similarly other alphabets as well. Now, what does this help with? Okay, we have a feature vector for every symbol. Now we can compare two signs simply based on their feature vectors. Two signs are more similar, the more features they have in common. For example, if I take the first letter of the first symbol from the linear A and the first alphabet letter from Korean alphabet, then I can see a similarity of 13. Why? Because all of the features are common for these two symbols. I can similarly analyze the value, similarity value for each pair and make a matrix like this. In this matrix, we see the linear A signs in the rows here, and on the top, we see the Korean alphabet signs. And each entry is the similarity between two symbols. Now, the linear A symbols have been arranged so that the highest similarities all lie along the diagonal. Almost all of the similarity values here along the diagonal are 13. So, that is a possible matching between the two sets of symbols. Here's another one. This is this time between linear A and the Old Hungarian alphabet. Similar arrangement. Along the diagonal, we have the highest similarity values. And finally, here's one more table, one more matrix. The Korean alphabet and the Old Hungarian alphabet are compared. Again, the diagonal contains similarity values of 13 or 12. And the match between the symbols is very interesting because it's not random. Okay? So the alphabet letter which has the phonetic value of O in the International Phonetic Alphabet shown in blue has the same value in both alphabets. B and P are paired. B and P are very similar sounds. Both are bilabial. W and B, T, D, T, D are also similar sounds. G are paired. So almost always the phonetic values either match or are very close to each other. So that is a very strong indication that these two alphabets have the same common origin, or maybe one is the ancestor of the other. This kind of analysis can be done with many other scripts and alphabets that existed in this region. And we can see that the writing from Crete, where it started at 2500 BC, spread very likely into branches. The red branch includes the Korean, Cypriot, Old Hungarian in that region. Also the Tifinagh writing, which is the ancient writing in North Africa, Berber tribes. And then a blue branch here, which eventually affected the development of Phoenician, South Arabic alphabet, and came back to Greece in classical times around 800 BC. All right, so this is the picture that comes in from just the script comparison. Besides the linear A, I mentioned also Cretan hieroglyph, and then other writings which are a little bit harder to classify. Here's a nice example called the Festus disc. This is closer to the Cretan hieroglyphs, and it can be read in a spiral form. There is some debate of how from the center outward or reverse. And as you can see, this is very interesting writing because every letter or every symbol here is printed by a small seal. That's why there's a lot of uniformity in the way it looks. Since this is one of the longest writings from the Minoan times, it's very interesting to analyze its grammar. The grammar shows very clearly structure where we have a fixed root, and this root will have various suffixes or no suffix at all. And so here I identified 6 different roots that repeatedly occur with or without some suffix. These suffixes also occur many other times on the disk, okay? So this type of structure, when we have the root followed by the suffix without any changing, no matter what we put after the root, it doesn't seem to change the root itself. This is called agglutinative structure. And this is a characteristic of many languages in this region. So agglutinative structure is what we see in the Minoan writings. Now, what we can exclude based on this small grammar analysis, of course we have done more, that this is the essence. First things to identify is that the Indo-European languages and Afro-Asiatic languages don't follow that pattern. So these can be excluded from consideration as a relative of the Minoan language. The agglutinative structure is found in the Basque language, Etruscan, the Finno-Greek languages, which does include Finnic, Hungarian, and Estonian, for example, Hurrian languages, and Kartvelian languages in the Caucasus, including Georgian. Okay, so agglutinative is a feature which does show up in many types of languages, many language families, but it does help to narrow at least what we look for. So we have done the script and the grammar. Etymology is the next. Okay. So this is very interesting because ancient Greek has been recorded since Homeric times, okay, or soon after. And looking at ancient Greek texts, many words can be collected, even those that don't survive in present-day Greek, and can be analyzed. There are some very, very good dictionaries which look at the etymology, that is the origin of words. Robert Beekes has a very good multi-volume dictionary of ancient Greek etymologies. Okay, so it's possible to find Greek-Hungarian parallels. For example, some writers have done that, but they were not looking at the etymologies, which is very very problematic, because we have obviously many Greek words borrowed in the Middle Ages to other European languages. In fact, the Byzantine Empire, with Greek as the official language, was a neighbor of Hungary during the Middle Ages. So many words were borrowed, many relationships existed. Okay, we have to look for words which are very ancient and can be traced back thousands of years to Minoan times. Okay, so what Robert Beekes identified in the dictionary is for each ancient Greek word, whether it has some cognates in the Indo-European languages, sometimes an obvious borrowing from Afro-Asiatic languages, Egyptian maybe, and sometimes he just simply said it's a pre-Greek word with non-Indo-European origin. So these words, which are pre-Greek and not Indo-European origin, are especially interesting because they could be survivors of the Minoan language. Some words survived in the ancient Greek, borrowed from the earlier layer. Now, this is very interesting. So most of these words are listed in this last column, the ancient Greek words of this type. And I could find for many of them cognates in other languages, in particular Hungarian and other Uralic languages such as Conti, Mansi, Finnish, and other languages. Okay, there are too many words to go through all of these, but you can start from the top, from Virsa and Bör, they both mean skin, and so on. So it does go on for several tables here. And these are all characteristic of many Uralic languages, a whole bunch. Okay. The Uralic language family has a specific branch called the Ugric branch. The Ugric branch is narrower, and the words here and some special grammatical features are only shared according to Finno-Ugric linguists by Hungarian, Conti, and Mansi. For example, Laszlo Honti has studied these cognate words in these three languages, so that is the Ugric branch, and he came up with about 220 such words that were supposedly only characteristic of these three languages. Now, actually I went through this list and from Honti, and I found for many of these too Greek cognates from, again, the dictionary of Beekes, and again usually saying that it's a non-Indo-European word in ancient Greek. So some of these are shown here. So let's look at the word, okay. Laimon, that means meadow. The English translation is there, okay. Laimon is the fourth word, characterized by L and M. And the consonants are the more stable elements of the words. They are highlighted in red. And in Hungarian, olom is a bed of straw. It's also related to the meadow because of straw, okay. So some slight shift of meaning. And in the Conti language, ilem, grass, in shoe, okay, put there to soften the shoe, okay. And so they are all related somehow to grass, therefore they are considered cognate, and they have this characteristic. I can go on over the other words, but we don't have a lot of time. The words continue here and here. So there are many words, okay? So this is a very much a surprise, and because of grammar as well as common vocabulary, it seems that the Minoan language can be put into this area close to Hungarian within the Ugric branch, so also close to Conti and Mansi, and a little bit farther from the Finnic languages and the Samoyedic languages within the Uralic family. All right, so this is a help, because once we know what language family Minoan belongs to, we can use that to help decipher the language, okay? Now let's put things together, okay? So we have done all of these three types of analysis. Now it starts to get exciting because we can start putting them together. So the common method of decipherment of ancient scripts is usually to look at the symbol, guess the language that is related to the unknown language, and find words that the symbol shows, okay? And if the word starts with a certain sound, then that is the phonetic meaning of the symbol. That's the acrophonic principle. However, the acrophonic principle by itself can be misleading, and in fact there are many attempts made for Minoan itself, not to mention other languages, that today look very funny to us because the translations are not really believable to be from the Minoan historical times, okay. So obviously something went wrong. We have to be very cautious when we are using the acrophonic principle, and therefore I call it the controlled acrophonic principle. So there's a lot of careful control that we add to this general principle. So what we can say with a reasonable certainty is that linear A is probably a syllabary, which means that each symbol is probably a combination of a consonant and a vowel, written as CV. And this is because linear B has the same structure, except some symbols can be vowels by themselves, okay? And probably linear B inherited a lot from linear A. Another reason to look for a syllabary is that if we had an alphabet, we would probably have fewer symbols. No language known uses 100 different phonetic values, okay? The alphabet is too large, okay? So syllabary is what we are looking for. Now, if we see an object, a symbol depict an object or action, which is described by some word omega in the Minoan language, and we know some words, okay, the ones that we identified in ancient Greek to have come from Minoan. We know some words, okay. And we know cognate words in related languages. And if the word starts with the syllable CV, and it is Proto-Ugric, Proto-Hungarian, or appears in the ancient Greek, and C, okay, so it starts with CV, and C, the consonant is the phonetic value of either the Korean or the Old Hungarian alphabet, or both. Then we can be pretty sure then that the phonetic value is CV. Okay? So this is the control. 4 things have to be satisfied simultaneously for the syllabic values to be CV. As an example of how this is applied, I show you here one linear A symbol, which is shown here, okay? And if we consider Hungarian language, we could also consider Khanthy-Mansi related languages. But in Hungarian, we can have these things. Some people, I ask people about this, and some people say it may denote a house, or an oven, or a hat, or just the attic, a ladder, a railroad, rail, if you can see that in the distance it runs together. And then also maybe a human being, okay, just a caricature, and maybe the legs of the human being are emphasized, okay. So these are some possibilities. There may be more, but we have to guess which is the best, okay. Now, we apply the first rule, okay, and then the second, and the third, and the fourth, okay, which means we find another letter similar to this. With this one, this is the most similar. In fact, an ancient form of this was even closer to that, okay. This is a later form, kind of. And we know that it had the value of L in the alphabet, Old Hungarian alphabet. Therefore, we only keep those as further possibilities where the word starts with an L, which would mean the ladder and legs, okay, 2 legs, okay. And out of these, which one should we choose? The ladder is a later word, okay. This doesn't appear in the old set of words, okay. Whereas leg, like many of the names for body parts, is a very ancient word which has cognates in most Uralic languages. So obviously the best choice would be the last one, which is this. Láb in Hungarian means leg, okay. All right, so similar considerations can be applied to any of the linear A symbols, and we can come up with this phonetic table. In this phonetic table, the rows show the consonant beginnings, and the columns the vowel that follows those consonants. Sometimes the consonants could be very close together, like T, D. I don't distinguish sharply these two. Generally within this row, I put the T first, D later, but they could change to each other as it does in many languages. Similarly, R and L, kind of close liquid sounds, and ancient linear B writing, for example, didn't even distinguish between these two. So I have put them just in one row. The one that we have seen as an example, the L here, and the O, lab, okay, pronounced like that, okay, is shown here in this entry. So this and that are together. Already in this table we have many syllabic values, and on the top with no preceding consonants are a few vowel values as well, as you can see. There are remarkable similarities here which we can explore. Now comes the real challenge. If we have these values, then we can plug these in to the symbols in various linear A texts or inscriptions and see whether they give us anything which is a meaningful text. So I have done this, okay, and the value of this was fe, the value of this was ne, ye, nye, and so on, using the International Phonetic Alphabet notations, okay. Now, like in linear B, we don't have to think that literally it was pronounced like these syllabic things. Sometimes the syllabic values were a little bit simplified in the actual pronunciation. So, but this is likely close to the original. Below that, I have put some words which seem to be cognate words from the Ugric languages, Hungarian words, and some of these are actually Conti words, okay. So looking at all of this together, fény means light, and csillog means gleam, and this is a beautiful golden ring, which indeed is very beautiful. And this is the text that seems to say sunshine and stars gleam down happy love every day. So maybe kind of a ring for lovers. Okay, I don't have to speculate too much, but that's how it looks to me. And notice that this also has a spiral writing, okay. The other one is another jewelry. This is a golden pin, hairpin. And when we plug in the same values here, I don't even repeat it syllable by syllable. I just repeat the word, fény, light. And then this is some conjugation, fényen, lenekem, so shine, okay. This is down, to me, kaku, ancestor, mother, okay, something like that, okay, and so on. The meaning apparently is the mother goddess shine down on me, the cloud watch me. Okay, so these are kind of a little prayer. A third example, this will be the last, is a cup, and it has some painted writing inside. This is very rare. Painted writing usually didn't survive all of these millennia, but in this one somehow luckily it did. When we plug in the values, we start to see something interesting. The value of Tiri may be referring to Thera. That was the older name of Santorini island today. Festu may be related to Festus, another city I mentioned earlier. Kitien, Katana is another town. And so there are some town names, and this is how it continues, okay? Menni, men, is go. It's a basic word. It's has to occur some writings, okay, because it's such a basic word, go. So what does it say? It's very interesting, okay? Now, Thera, Festus, Katana, toward, go, this laws. And this is actually a name for laws. And then there's an extra symbol in the end, which may be a logogram, maybe also can be read as the object, in this case, this laws. Okay. So it is kind of a text which is called an ostraka, okay, and maybe it is intended to bring some bad disaster to these other towns, okay. All right, so this is a little bit interesting because the cup with the painted writing was found in Knossos, and Knossos was the big rival at one time of these other towns and islands, Santorini, Festus, and Katana. So this may have happened. All right, so this is it. Now a few things I just mentioned. This is more hypothetical. Is that we have to consider that the Minoan writings existed over 1,000 years, and they changed. Eventually, we will see a development from syllabic writing to alphabetical writing in a gradual way. Even in linear B, the CI, this is pronounced E, syllable could be read as a consonant as well as a syllable itself. So they had some way of indicating consonants as well as syllables, okay? So it's one step toward alphabetic, probably, that led later to Korean alphabet and other writings. What we see here, the Festus disc, is kind of has the flavor of a mixture of syllabic and alphabetic writing, and this is how I try to translate it, okay? And it turns out to be some kind of prayer to some chief god to protect the Minoans on the seas and to bring sunshine every day, okay? So this is the last translation I gave. There are many other translations that we have to work on because there are 1,500 linear A texts, 350 Cretan Hieroglyph texts, so there's a lot of things, okay? To aid the translation work with two students in this class, Parvez and Yves, okay, we developed the system ADA, which is storing all of the Minoan inscriptions. Okay, so this is the design. It has in it the linear A inscriptions, Cretan hieroglyph inscriptions. The Festus disc also stored separately with all the blocks in it. And the linear A lexicon is here. And finally, the symbols of various types, all there. It's important to bring these inscriptions together because there is a lot of benefit to see whether there is similar structure in the writings. As an example, I can give this, okay, what it's capable of doing. If we type in the value 25, 4, and 3. These are three different number encodings of Cretan hieroglyph symbols. In the line for Cretan hieroglyphs, the ADA system brings up all of the linear A translation of the Cretan hieroglyph or Festus disc writing. And for scholars, it also gives the ID number of the Cretan hieroglyph and the Festus disc block or ID, okay? So all of this is brought up. And so what we have found that the same triple occurs in two different writings, one Cretan hieroglyph, another is the Festus disc, which is considered somewhat a separate, and yet you see the same word, same structure at the end of these two inscriptions. Another example I like to give is the word for moon. And the moon is another thing that occurs in several writings. When we type in simply the word in the last line, then we see the translated text, okay, the translation, the entire sequence of the linear inscription encoded by numbers, and also some identification number for that particular inscription coming from a standard book for these inscriptions. Okay, so immediately it returns the all the inscriptions which contains the word moon, and perhaps from all of the 3 different types of inscriptions. Okay. In addition, it can give from the dictionary some information about the moon. Interestingly, this is expressed, one way of expressing the moon is that it is a star, and it's the chief star or the queen of the stars. Okay, so it's interesting, Minoan compound, as it turns out to be. Okay, according to our present translation. So this system is still in development. It's very nicely going on. Thanks. Okay. At the Parvez and Eves. Okay. And so in conclusion, I can say that we need to do more translations. This system will greatly help the work. And we also would like to see whether this related set of scripts, which we call the Cretan script family, can be further extended. Okay, especially in this region of the Eastern Mediterranean and Black Sea region. In ancient time, there were many, many other scripts that could be possibly related. And finally, I just give a bibliography of some works that we have done. This can be found on my web page. Okay. Some of you have read it, okay. And finally, I'd like Parvez and Eves to please stand up. Okay. So these students have helped in the development of the ADA system, so I thank them very much for their work, okay. Thank you. Okay. Okay. And now we have time for questions, okay. Any questions, please? Yes?
I have a question regarding the Festus case that you showed the suffix there. So if we don't have the direction, like it's kind of, there are different opinion on the direction of the reading. So how we can decide the suffix?
Yes, that's a very good question. So the question was, when we look at the Festus disc, it's a writing in spiral form. Should we read from the inside to the outside, or from the outside to in? Okay. Opinions vary on this. Okay, some scholars say this, some scholars say that. The analysis does not doesn't change much. Okay, the roots remain roots, the suffixes become prefixes. Okay, and still you can say that this is not common, these prefixes in the European languages, for example. So probably it's not that. So you can use it partially, okay? to distinguish the roots, okay? Of course, read in the reverse order. What is more interesting is looking at closely at some of these parts of this disc. We can see that one seal overstemmed another seal. And a careful analysis of this, in fact, will lead to the conclusion that it has to be read left to right, from the in to the outside. And by the way, that's the normal direction of reading linear A scripts as well. Okay, so that's a good question. Any other question? Okay. Somebody earlier asked me what other scripts could be considered to possibly be related to the Cretan script family. Does anybody have some idea what other scripts could be considered? Ancient Egyptian. Arthur Evans thought that ancient Egyptian could be related to Cretan hieroglyphs, the Egyptian hieroglyphs. Of course, there is an ancient Sumerian writing, for example, and so on. So there are other writings in the area which may have influenced the development of Cretan hieroglyphs. In fact, in the Danubian region, there was also some kind of writing that may have influenced. Okay, so these are the things to explore. That's one thing that we would like to do. Okay. So any other question? Okay, so thanks for coming and listening. Thank you.